started, I wanted to talk about the server. What is the SMP server? Why do I even keep it alive? What is the point even when no one plays? Doesn't it just get boring? The server is a living and breathing place full of unturned pages. Its purpose is to provide sanctuary to builders, designers, and architects alike, archive and preserve time and history, and provide fun for those who play. The server provides the canvas for these ideas, allows us to organize them, and with that, expand them. Bottom line, the server is whatever you make it. Play in it, build in it, experiment in it. And it is because of these things I keep the server running. Because playing on it isn't its sole purpose. With that understood, let's get right into SMP History 3. Chapter 1, A Modern World. Is thus settled with the new government, modernization was the next step for the great cities of the world. Quickly the government began giving funding to local governments to fix up cities and begin work on bringing a modern feel. Big corporations such as Mining Co. and Construction Co. were called to help rejuvenate the roads and walkways of the city streets. The changes made to the city were night and day. You could almost feel like you were in a different city. These changes created questions like, are we going to pave over older roads? And is this going to happen in rural areas too? The government began drafting legislation to help clear the fog for the everyday people. The new government set out to be more open with the citizens and made it a priority to create an understanding with everything that they decided to do. Chapter 2, Renuclearization. With the government creating new legislation during urban modernization, government officials slipped legislation in that allowed the government to work on projects with the ability to withhold information from the public for up to 14 days with the ministry's approval. With this in place, the ruling party of the state asked the ministry for an approval of a scientific research project with ability to withhold information for 14 days. With the ruling party acquiring their grant, work began on the nuclear reactors of New York City. Public opposition led to the closure of all nuclear plants following the energy crisis in the year prior. The ruling party assigned old NYC nuclear engineers to begin researching for safety solutions for the fission reactors for future revision. The NYC nuclear team began an investigation to determine the condition of the nuclear reactors and the waste management systems. NYC engineers reported numerous flaws in the nuclear meltdown safety equipment, while also discovering possible leaks in the waste management systems. With that in mind, the ruling party assigned the nuclear engineers to begin retrofitting the old nuclear reactors with safety equipment, while also doing testing on waste management, irrigation, and storage. The nuclear engineers were able to borrow an existing safety mechanism to install in the older nuclear reactors. The first nuclear reactor was retired after inspection, since it was determined unfit for power generation. By the time revisions were finished, the ruling party was required to post all collected information to the public. Nuclear opposition appeared once more. With understanding, the ruling party took interviews with NYC nuclear engineers to clear the air on the former government's nuclear disasters. The ruling party pledged to make everything regarding nuclear transparent to the public. With public backlash dying down, the ruling party gave the signal to NYC to reboot the old nuclear reactors and deactivate the gas plants. Periodically, running the nuclear reactors gave NYC employees downtime to fix and maintenance problems with the gas burning plants and resolve issues. Running the nuclear reactors periodically gives researchers the ability to collect information about the nuclear processes and experiment with the waste byproducts. Overall, the reinstitution of nuclear research was deemed beneficial by the public. Chapter 3, A Restoration Effort. Long ago, during the cusp of industrialization, companies of New York ran nearly unregulated in the state. This gave businesses cheap shots for making money. At the time, the country was still recovering from an economic downturn, and it would be detrimental to push policies on the surviving businesses. During this time, skyscrapers were the top of discussion due to the beginning of construction of the new World Trade Center. This building was one of the most resource-intensive buildings to be built so far in the nation. With this project, businesses of New York jumped on the opportunity to provide materials necessary to complete the job. One of these businesses was a glass company in Midtown Manhattan. This business took advantage of the lack of policies protecting the neighboring environments and decided to harvest large sums of sands from downtown coastal regions of New York City we now know today. These areas were left destroyed following the construction of the World Trade Center building, and were left that way until March of 2022, where preservationists went to these destroyed beaches to return them to their former glory. Provided with monetary incentives and a drive to better the city, a minuscule amount of people went to the beaches and began work on the restoration effort. It took only a few days for the project to be finished. Now the beaches are slowly attracting wildlife back. While the restoration effort was going on, in the background, citizens of New York City were complaining about the unattractive buildings taking away from the beauty of the city skyline. Public outcry led to policies being drafted on industrial buildings in specific districts within the city. A notable affected building was above the old suburban home in Midtown Manhattan. A chemical company mass production plant sat on stilts above the old home, taking away from the views of the skyscrapers from neighboring apartment buildings. This company moved its plant following the passing of building policies, and the building was then torn down, exposing the stunning views of the city. Chapter 4. Jersey City. After the beaches surrounding New York City and New Jersey were restored to their former glory, the land was again up for grabs. Interest in settling in New Jersey creeped up again once Standard Oil tested for oil reservoirs. Jersey was rich in oil, so Standard Oil had a new reason to work with the federal government. Private talks between business representatives and government officials ended with a government spending program to bring more settlers into the area. The government-led effort to terraform the land into a New York City-esque look, featuring paved roads, stone terrain, and an organized sewer subway system connected directly to the Big Apple. With commercial, industrial, and residential settlers moving into the area, Standard Oil and the federal officials went to the drawing board to figure out what to do with the oil reservoirs. Eventually it was decided that a new organization would be formed, OPEC. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting States has been formed. The group specifically was to handle interstate relations regarding power and anything petroleum related. Only a few states were actually exporting petroleum products, since the process of oil processing has been a New York State exclusive due to government interest in Standard Oil business. Lines were drawn defining states New York and New Jersey as the nation's designated oil exporters. In exchange for the government spending plan to build Jersey City, New York State was to be given complete exclusivity to the oil reservoirs beneath Jersey State. Other states of the Union would be designated as petroleum importers. With the dust on oil designation settled, Standard Oil was left with a surplus of oil. Standard Oil. Standard Oil began to invest into propane lighting nationwide. The problem was that propane production wasn't scaled large enough to meet the demand of a national propane light grid. So research began to figure out the best and efficient process of converting oil refinery products directly into propane. New designs using heat and pressurization of petroleum goods created a efficient and effective process of converting excess gasoline directly into propane to be sold and used across the nation. This fixed the lack of supply to match national propane demand. Jersey City, Richmond, and Vegas were now being built to accommodate propane lighting. The new system would rid the city lag of torches and bring a more efficient and controllable system of lighting to the nation. Chapter 5, 1.16 to 1.18. After some time passed, the transitional period updating from 1.16 to 1.18 was ready to begin. The mod pack has undergone testing and was finally in a deployable state. The problem was the server, okay? So let me explain. Updating between subversions of Minecraft without mods doesn't happen to have a game-changing effect on the world itself, making it a trivial task. The problem with moving between releases of the game with mods is it could cause problems, most notably in this case, world corruption and loss of progression. I tried many different ways of tackling the problem, from loading the server into single player and porting the world back to the server. We found in the past that this works much better than letting the server update itself. We found that New York City had some ticking tile entities that would crash the server on startup. We configured Forge to try to delete these tile entities, or skip them, in the Forge config, and the result was non-stop crashes, and then running out of memory, and then world corruption. Some of the blocks were even swapped. You could try to place stained glass and it would turn into something else. It was actually really interesting in the end of how bugged everything can really get when hopping between versions with mods. Anyways, we found that the terrain and pre-existing blocks that would also be present in the new versions would stay if we were to load the server in vanilla before reintroducing mods. The catch to this perfect sounding method was it would involve loading chunks in the spawn radius on the server startup. This, of course, would involve New York City, since it's within proximity to the affected radius. After internal debate, we were willing to task ourselves with restoring New York City back to its old self. In return to wiping modded progress of New York, we would not only get the new features of Minecraft, but the new mods. In preparation for this, we decided to take everything out of New York City that was modded, or took time to replace, everything that we couldn't afford to lose. We took all of the item blocks, etc., placed them into a designated area in Virginia, which happened to be far enough away to be unaffected from the update, and then once everything was taken apart, stashed, and readied, it led to the question, or were we ready? Chapter 6, Deja Vu. Here we go again. Back to redoing everything that was already done. This time was with the added benefit of the crafted work being done ages ago. Rebuilding New York City's infrastructure really led to us trimming the unneeded fat. Antique machines serving unneeded purposes, fluid lines for liquids no longer needed, and etc. This really gave the opportunity to restore not only frame rates, but the faith in the future of the New York City residents. Before the update, New York City population was shrinking due to the unbearable frames per second. It was nearly unplayable. These issues were primarily caused by the disorganized sewer systems and factories running without reason, and just all the machines being clumped together in one area. Not only was the FPS restoration an added benefit of restructuring the city, but power consumption was lowered. With less unneeded factories running, there would be an overall less power consumption, and it would lower the amount of strain on the gas-burning electrical generation facilities. NYC would also require less maintenance to keep the power plants operational. Lots of old, antiquated styles of bioplant generation was replaced with more efficient, modern designs and overall better biogeneration designs. This helped with moderating the new lag that would be created from reintroducing mods infrastructure to the city. After some weeks, the city began to take its shape and went back to a viable place to live. Some people moved back to the cities, and others stuck with what worked and stayed away. All in all, the update wiping mods from New York City may have done more good than harm. Nothing better to do than celebrate and turn around and add another draining skyscraper project to the list. Chapter 7, World Trade Center Complex. The project that's been in the works for a while, actually, and the debate that resulted in a win on both sides. Years ago, the ask was made to create the World Trade Center. What World Trade Center building was left up to question. People settled on the One World Trade Center tower. Recently, the question was brought up again when looking to construct a new skyscraper. What are landmark towers of New York City, and which one of them should we start work on next? Eventually, the twin World Trade Center towers were thrown back into the mix. Now, a majority of the city's favorite towers have already been constructed. So, the debate was left up to whether or not building the World Trade Center towers should be constructed in the first place. Why not something else? There already is a World Trade Center. The One World Trade Center, just like in the real New York. Well, players were intrigued at the idea of the ideal New York City. Players not only wanted to create the building for their utility in real estate, but wanted them for the skyline. Just because the events of September 11th occurred didn't mean we as builders could not appreciate the architectural design of these towers and immortalize them as well as their history in our server. Designs of buildings were drafted and the blueprints were finished, and construction began August 8th at 1:33 p.m. on the South Tower, and construction began August 9th around 10 p.m. on the North Tower. As of now, the South Tower remains to be the only completed part of the World Trade Center complex. Construction took a pause when the mod pack and server made its switch to 1.18. We were hoping to finish these buildings before the end of the year. Thanks for watching. The history video didn't have as many chapters as the ones before it, but that's completely down to the history of the year and the planning of this video. I normally start the planning phase of the history video project 6 months in advance, just, to get the stuff written down when it's fresh in the mind. Towards late September, it looked like the year was coming to a close for the server, history-wise. Anything that got missed will definitely make its appearance in the next history video. Anyways, going back to this video, I wanted to just take these final moments and use them sort of like a director's cut. I wanted to fully embed my ideas into this year's video. I was running out of old wartime music to pull from for the chapters, so I figured I'd take a different approach. I figured there would be no better soundtracks to pull from than C418's Minecraft soundtracks Volume Alpha and Beta. I really felt I could tie the emotion and drive of the server with the music that's naturally placed in the game. The tracks I had chosen were specifically C418's because I didn't want to disturb the style. On top of the music, I felt the visuals and scenery were extremely important, so I worked on that this time around. When we updated the server to 1.18, we were finally able to use shaders. This, paired with path tracing textures, really created in my mind the beautiful representations of our creations and really helped tighten the knot. I really hope that my attempt of capturing the idea of the server, its importance, and most importantly the hidden beauty of the creations worked for you with this video. I'd finally like to mention my different attempt of writing. Normally the history videos are scripted to help ensure an easy transfer of information while still being interesting. This time around I decided to try to add some character to my sentences to really reinforce the connection of me to you, the listener. I really want these videos to be easy to watch or listen to while not being boring or overly long. Hopefully the style change wasn't bad and worked in favor of my overall attempt of portraying my ideas and visuals, sound, and writing styles. All in all, this was a simple year, and it's really helped me take that extra second to express my thoughts and ideas and the beauty of the collaborative effort that is the MC server. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in MC SMP History 4.